So inside GameMaker, there are a built-in collection of effects that you can call up. And effects are just objects like everything else, but they've already been created for you. And all you have to do is instantiate them at a given location and pass in some arguments that help to define what the effects will look like and how they'll behave. So let me demonstrate this for you. So we're here in our fire. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Well, let's see. In the collision between the fireball and the demon, we're already destroying our instances, but I'd like to use these built-in effects. So let's go before we do the destroying of things. Let me call up yet another built-in function. There's one that's called effect create, and there are two different versions of it: effect create above, effect create below. And this above and below is a little disingenuous, I guess. It doesn't actually mean like closer to the top of the screen or farther down to the bottom of the screen. What it means is, are we going to create the effect in front of the object that this script is attached to, meaning the fireball, or are we going to create it behind? Well, we want to create it in front of, I guess. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter. I think in my practice one I created it below, so we'll say below. Then we need to pass some information to it. And if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you can see we have to tell which effect we want to use, what its position is going to be, what its size is going to be, and what color it's going to be. So this effect create below, in a way, is sort of similar to our instance create function we used earlier. It's like a specialized version of that works just for these built-in special effects. There's this whole collection of these effects. They all start with EF underscore. Clouds, ellipse, explosions, fireworks, flares, rain, rings, smoke, snow, sparks, stars. And I'll let you play with those on your own. We're going to use one that's called smoke up. And we're going to position it at our current X of the fireball plus 50. So we're going to take it and move it over a little bit toward the right. And for the Y, we'll just use our current Y. For the size, we're going to say 1, which is essentially 100%. So you go between 0 and 1. For the scale, really, is what it's closer to. And then which color do we want it to be? We'll use a built-in color, white. So what happens is this fireball hits the demon, and then right where the fireball is, it's going to create this smoke effect, which will give us a sort of a cooler look. So let's see how that works. Ooh, nifty. Come on, give me one. Oh, now when I fire it, you can see it's kind of a more appealing little bout of destruction, because you get to witness this. You get to witness this smoke coming up. This is handy too, because if you kill one of these guys when they're right next to the dragon, you tend not to really see anything happening. So using these little smoky effects, it just looks better, basically. You can play around and try out different effects to make it work however you like. So that's a nice visual. Another thing we need to do is we would like to make this more game-like, in that we want to give some points to the player for hitting one of these guys. So in our previous assignment, we used the built-in variable score to keep track of score. Already, I'm going to start moving you away a little bit from using some of these built-in variables and instead creating your own. So let's create our own variable to keep track of score for the game. Now you remember from last assignment, we talked about the use of these kind of controller scripts, or controller objects. These are objects that don't have an image associated with them, a sprite. Instead, they're used to manage rooms or entire games. keeping track of the values of variables, sometimes doing GUI drawing, and so on. So we're going to set some of our own variables that we want to keep track of through this game. So I'm going to open up the controller object and go into the create event. And I've got this controller setup script. I don't know that you really need it. Let me demonstrate the fact that you can do things in separate scripts. Separate scripts are primarily useful, as I've said, like this utility one. If you've got a script that is going to be a set of functionality that's going to be used by lots of different objects. In our program, I have, I've added a controller setup script, but I actually don't think we need it because we're only going to set up the controller once. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'll just type it straight in there, right? I guess to demonstrate that you can do this however you like. All right, now I want to keep track of score, that's one thing, but I'm going to use my own custom version. I'm going to create an instance variable of score. And you remember when I created a local variable, I had used a keyword var, and then I had my own naming scheme, which was to put an underscore under at the beginning of the name and then call it something. I'm going to follow that same idea with my own custom instance variable. So I'm going to create one called score and put an underscore at the end of it. And that I'll use to indicate anytime I'm creating an instance variable that's my own variable, I'm going to end the name with an underscore. Right, so I'm going to say score, and I'm going to initialize it to 0. One of the things that we're going to need to do in this game to win the game is to have the player save a certain number of little cute baby dragons that are going to come flying across that haven't done it yet. So I'm going to create an instance variable for that too, called babies saved. And I'll set that to 0 also. And, well, there's another one we might do later, but let's just start with these two for now. Okay. Well, now that we have declared and initialized, or now that we've declared and initialized our score variable on the controller object, let's update that to give the player points when they hit the demon with Fireball. So let's go over here, open up our Fireball, and here's this. So we want to update that score here. So think for a second before I type it in. What is it that you need to have happen when you collide with that object in order for it to update the score? Figure it out? It's not too hard. We want to update score, right? So score, making sure we're putting that underscore, and then we're going to add, let's say 100 points. Now right now, this won't work. And the reason this won't work is that this instance variable is living here on the Fireball. But we actually want to update the instance variable of score that's living out on our controller object. So we need to address that specific instance variable score. So we're going to have to call it by saying object controller dot score update to by 100. Excellent. And it will do it. Unfortunately, we can't see anything, right? We'd like to be able to see on screen that the score is being updated. So just as we did in our Click the Clown game and our Flying Fruit game, you're going to need to draw that information out onto the screen. And that seems like another great use for our controller objects. Let's go back to our controller object, and you'll see there's a draw event in here. And with the pre-written version I've already given you, it's calling the script draw room GUI, and I'll leave it up to you. You can either make use of that script by calling it, that's what it's doing already, or you can just enter the code directly into the action window. really doesn't make a big amount of difference right now. I just was really into creating scripts when I set up the sample, so it's up to you. All right, so what do we want to draw here? Well, the basic thing we want to do is our go draw text, right? And we can position it. We'll say 2020, and this should look very familiar. So we're going to say score plus string and score. Now I just complained saying, well, this won't work. You have to say that it is object controller dot score in order for that to work. But look where this lives. It lives on the object controller. So when you've got a script that's attached to a given object and you're addressing that object, a variable that may live elsewhere, an instance variable on that object, you don't have to be explicit in saying it. So I'm not doing that here. It's complaining because it needs one more of these guys. That's fine, but what's wrong with it? Well, we haven't given any information about what we want the text to look like, which we've done before, so choose a good color that you like. I'll do mine as yellow. And something that we didn't do earlier, we were just using, we set some colors, I think, in the earlier assignment, and we did some alignment, we centered the text, so on. But we didn't work with fonts. And a cool thing in GameMaker is that just like sprites and sounds and scripts and objects, you can create fonts. So I've already included a couple in here. If we open one up, here's one called Font Score. You can see here it is. It's an Arial font, it's bold, etc. I'll show you real quick how to create it your own. Just right click, choose Create Font, select from a whole ton of fonts, whatever you've got on your own computer. You can modify the size you want it to be, whether you want anti-aliasing to be on, which specific characters you want to include, etc., etc., etc. Very simple to use, so I'll let you play with that on your own. In fact, you can more than welcome to change the score font or even just to create your own new font to use. But since we're here, let's go ahead and draw out some fonts. All right, so I'm going to say draw set font, and I'll pass it the name of the font that I want to use, which I call Font Score. There it is. Beautiful. All right, so it'll be yellow font. We've called Font Score. It's going to be a 2020, and etc. So let's see if that works. Hey, look at that. Looks pretty good. If I hit one of these guys, there, I got 100 points. Boom, a couple hundred points. More and more points. Sweet. Lots of points. Okay. Well, that all works pretty well, actually. Right now, though, there's no way for our player to get hurt. And we've got these demons that are shooting out at the player, so presumably we want to make it so that if the player gets hit by this guy, then he's going to be hurt. And there are two ways to work with this, right? You could set up a collision on the demon between the demon and the player. Or, as we've done here, you can set up a collision from the player side, from the player to the demon. So let's do that. And what do we want to have happen there? Well, we want to, let's say we're going to lose points, and maybe we should lose health too. Now, we've not started to play with the health yet, so maybe we'll have to work with that next. Yeah, let's go ahead and set up health for our player, and then we'll knock down the health if they get hit by one of those demons. So up here in the create event, we're going to create a health instance variable using that same underscore at the end, and we'll set the health to 100, full health. Now I could declare and initialize this health instance variable on the controller object. It would work just as well there. And in fact, we set up a bunch of other stuff already on that controller object. Whichever, doesn't make any difference. For me, it just is logical. We're talking about health. It's the player's health, and so I'll place it here on the player, on the dragon. Then we're going to need to knock down the health when the player runs into, or I guess I should say, is hit by the demon. So here we are on the collision, and I'll just say health, so subtract 10, let's say. And this is tricky. If we leave the script as it is here, when we collide between the dragon and the demon, we're going to lose 10 points of health. It's not going to work quite right. I want you to think about why. Yeah, I'll give you a second. The reason is, what will happen is that this demon is going to be moving across from right to left. It'll collide with the dragon, it'll lose 10 points, and then what happens? Well, it's just going to keep moving, and the whole time it's intersected with this dragon, it's going to continue to lose 10 points of health. So basically, just by running into the dragon, you'll die. You'll reach 0 health. That's a little harsh. So what we want to do is make it so that as soon as this demon runs into the demon is destroyed. So that you only lose 10 points of health when you're hit by a demon. And to do that, we'll use this with again. With what? With other, meaning the thing we ran into from the dragon, which is the demon. Instance destroyed. Sweet. Well, that'll work. Right now on the screen in the game, we are showing the score, but we're not showing health. Now we could just simply draw health. We could just say health equals 100, and when they get hit, you'll see health drop to 90, drop to 80, drop to 70. But I want to use something a little fancier than that, and it's something that's not unbelievably important for you in terms of developing a game. So this is a point where I'll just quickly show you how we can draw a health bar instead, placed right above our little dragon character, that will visually demonstrate how much health the player has from moment to moment. And we're going to make use of yet another built-in function called draw health bar. If I middle click, you can see all the incredible detail about what's happening, and you can see examples of what these health bars look like. So they're kind of standard looking game health bars. It's quite a useful little tool. So I'm going to say draw health bar, and what I'm doing here inside this long collection of arguments is I'm saying, where do I want the upper left hand corner of the health bar to be in relationship to the player? Where do I want the lower right-hand corner of the health bar to be? And in doing those two things, I'm defining the position, the size, and the shape, I guess, of that health bar. Now, the upper left-hand corner is just fixed. It's going to be a little bit to the right of our origin point for our player, and it's going to be a little bit above the head of our player. And the right hand is going to be at 100, and then it's going to be a little bit above. So this basically defines, here's our rectangle. Okay. Then we have to say what information or what value do we want to fill this health bar? Well, the value we want to use is the player's health. So if the player's health is 100, it'll be completely filled with color. And as that drops, this will shrink. This will always stay the same rectangle, but the health will be like a color bar that will get smaller and smaller and smaller. Then we say, okay, what colors do we want for our rectangle? What do we want for our minimum color? What do we want for our maximum color? What direction do we want our bar to move in as it gets smaller? Do we want to show a background? Do we want to show a border? Oof, that's what all of this is saying. So we're going to have our background be black. We're going to have the no health be red, the full health be green. We're not actually going to show the background. We're going to have a border around it, etc., etc., etc. All right, so gosh, that's a lot of stuff going on. So let's see what that looks like. Hey, look at there. Now we have this bar, and if he gets hit, you can see the bar is shrinking down, changing color as it gets smaller. Come on, keep going. There you go. It starts to turn red as health is dropping. No, that never gives me anything to actually die, and it reaches 0 and nothing happens because I haven't told the game to do anything if our health is 0. Now we need to make it so that when our player dragon's health reaches 0, the game ends because the player has lost. So let's go ahead and make that happen next. To do that, you make use of our object controller that we already have set up with a score and baby save in the create event, and we've already been using it to draw our GUI in the room, showing the score. But we haven't made use yet of the step event for our object controller. And in the starter project I've given you, I've typed in the name of a function, which then leads to an empty script. So let's fill this in, and you can choose to do this either way. It's going to be quite a short collection of code. So if you want to just directly enter it into the coding window that goes with the step event, you can, or you can open up the controller step GML script, which is right here, and type it in there. I'll leave it over here for now just to keep with the original intent of this game, which is to do lots of practicing creating scripts, but it's not really all that necessary for something this basic. All right, so what we want to do in our controller is we need to be able to check continuously how much health the player has, and if the health reaches 0, then we need to end the game. And for this game, the way we're going to end it is we're going to move to a room that is sort of the losing room. And we'll go to the losing room. In that room, there will be a message to the player letting them know they lost the game. We'll run an alarm, which is a kind of timer, for a certain number of seconds. And when that timer reaches 0, we'll restart the game. So let's make all of that happen. So we started all of that off by saying if the player's health is 0, they've lost the game. So it's a great opportunity to make use of an if statement. And we want to know the current value of the player's health. So remember, we defined our own custom variable called health, but we defined it on a specific object, right? We defined and initialized it on the player object. So we're going to say if obj_player.health is equal to, well, let's not do that, is less than 1. Okay, so meaning that it's 0. If it's less than 1, then what we're going to do is end the game. And again, the way we're going to end the game is by going to a specific room. in our game to show a message. You would do the same thing, moving back and forth between rooms as you're building a full game. If, for example, a player finishes a given level in the game, to go to the next level, one approach would be to have the next level exist in its own room. So in our case, we'll make use of the built-in function room go to. And there are three types of these built-in functions. One is room go to, and then you pass it a number or the name of a room. Room go to next, room go to previous. Well, we want room go to, and even though it says number, we're actually going to give it the name of the room we want to move to. And if I look over at my resources list, you'll see in the starter project there's a room in there called room lose. We'll go there, rm_lose. And that's it. So let's give this a try. Actually, before we do this, I want to show you something. So this will take us to that lose room, assuming that there is a room with that name. And you could do a check for this, and we'll do that a little later, but we'll keep it pretty simple for now. And then, as I mentioned, when you get to that room, I want to pause briefly, show a message to the player, and then restart the game. In the starter project, I didn't think this was as important as some of the other things that I wanted you to learn. So I actually went ahead and created this script that you'll need for that. So you don't have to write the script. So if we open up this lose room, there we go. Here's what it looks like. It looks just like the title screen. And it's already got a controller object in there, which is the lose controller. Okay, so let's take a look at the lose controller. Here it is over here. Object lose controller. Let's open up that one. And when I open it up, you'll see, to save time, I've already added in the code. So let me talk through this really quickly. We have a create event, so as soon as the game moves into the lose room, this create event will get fired. And what we're doing in the create event is we are setting an alarm. That's what this alarm set built-in function is, and you'll see it here. Alarm set, you're going to say which alarm do you want to set. You can do anything from 0 up to 11. And then how long do you want the alarm to run for? And this is hello, Brian. This is in, sorry, brain had to kick in there. This is in steps. So I've set our alarm to 60, which is 2 steps. Okay. Or you can do room speed times 2, and then whatever your speed is, it will take that and essentially turn it into a second and then multiply that by 2. Okay, so we'll set an alarm for 2 seconds. Then when the alarm goes off, we'll use this built-in function, which is game restart, which does just what it says. It restarts the game. And for those 2 seconds, we're going to draw some text on the screen. So I'm first setting the font. I have a special font just for this room. This is what it looks like here. And we'll set the horizontal alignment to be the center, the vertical alignment to be the top, the color I set to red, and then I'm going to draw some text that says you lose out in the middle of our room. Okay. So let's try that. Let's go ahead and have our poor guy get killed and then see if this works. Oh, let them all hit me. My health's dropping. Oh, of course, now they're not going to... There we go. Give me any. Come on. There we go. So it goes here, it says you lose, and then the game restarts.